One of the things I'm learning about myself through this process is that I have a good amount of fear. I don't mean that I'm scared of things to the point they're phobias, though wasps and cockroaches come pretty close to being phobias for me. And I don't mean fear of unreal things like maybe Michael Myers coming to kill me. Side note, a few years ago, when I was the best person at the wedding of one of my besties, I thought about giving my toast dressed as Michael Myers because he is her biggest fear. But instead, I took a more traditional approach because I thought it would play better in the photos. The fear I'm facing isn't a single simple thing. It's multiple things that scare me. Fear and anxiety go hand in hand, so it's no wonder that the things that frighten me are amping up my anxiety levels. Fear also feeds intrusive thoughts, so that's a problem too. For example, every time I post one of these videos, I have fear about how people are going to react, which makes me anxious for several hours until I realize the world is still spinning and I have not actually died from embarrassment. But this fear is actually well-founded because it is impacting my business to some degree. I said in the first video that I couldn't be held back by the fear of current or future clients seeing me as a real human with real problems, and I stand by that. But I also have to admit that somebody who found these videos organically was very uncomfortable seeing me having struggles, and they wanted a referral elsewhere. Of course, I support them seeking out the best care they can find to help them live a happier and healthier life. I absolutely wish them well on their journey. I am not taking it personally. But it does reflect a reality of what happens when people see therapists as less than perfect. So I have a fear every time I hit the upload button, and that fear becomes an anxiety response for a few hours. It had gotten much better the more I posted, but now it's creeping back up a little bit as I see that something I feared did come to fruition. A huge thing I've always feared is vulnerability. Remember when I talked before about compartmentalization? Works so well for me because it allows me to avoid vulnerability. And I know that that avoidance has roots in fear. Yes, there is a huge part of that compartmentalization. That is just how my brain is wired and how my personality manifests day in and day out. But there is fear as well. Fear of being judged, fear of being rejected, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being looked down upon, fear of being pitied, fear of looking foolish. Basically, fear of any reaction that I might perceive as negative or less than positive. I'm having a lot of fear about my relationship these days. At first, it was just a fear of him giving up, or me giving up, throwing up our hands and walking away. Then it was fears about how we could work on us while living apart and not having that much in-person contact. Now it's fears about how the things we are working on together and the things I'm sharing about my struggles and my journey are trigger points for him. Because, as I talked about before, we identified each other as triggers for specific things we're trying to address. Not triggers to the point that we need to sever all ties and run screaming into the masses for cover, but some of our individual behaviors are trigger points for each other. So as we work on things, as we share more openly and honestly, there's more possibility that we're going to trigger each other. And it actually has happened more than once. And that creates a divide at a time when we don't need any more division. So then I become more fearful about really sharing all the things he wants me to share or that he says he wants me to share if they're going to be problematic, even in the short term. I think I'm being realistic about how this works. Of course, there are going to be activation moments as we work on specific things because those specific things are trigger points. And the way we resolve that is by addressing it head on. I get that. But still, I have fear. And I don't always know what to do with that fear because if I share too freely, trigger point. So I did what I've been doing for weeks now. I turned back to worksheets about identity development, self-concept, self-esteem, qualities and traits, gratitude, all the things that, at least in theory, should help me feel a bit better by recognizing and focusing on the positive aspects of this journey, reminding myself of all that is good and worthy about me. And I did more work on challenging fearful notions. It helped. It also didn't help, all at the same time. Here's why. I'm realizing through all this intensive work that I'm actually a pretty decent human being. I am a good friend. I am a good son. I am a good almost parent. I am a good community citizen. I do things that make the world a better place for myself and others. I am Even if it doesn't always show in these very raw and open moments, I am very good at my job. There are a lot of great things about me. And yes, there are things I'd like to improve. But overall, the good far outweighs the things I want to improve. And in that regard, this work is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. But it also heightens my fear response a bit because I'm realizing I'm not a total piece of shit, not some, as the boyfriend would say, shit ass. I'm not a bad person who's reaping what he sows. So now I have this new fear about all this potential and missing out on things because others don't see it. So the pendulum has really swung to the other side, and now I need to come back a little closer to center. To be clear, I am not paralyzed by these fears. I am not hiding out in my house, avoiding people and places. I still act, I still react, but maybe not as genuinely as I would like right now. And that's part of what I'm working on in this process. But now I fear that being fully genuine is going to create new problems or make some problems worse. And fuck, what to do? There are thousands, if not millions, of websites that tout self-help tactics to tackling fear and anxiety. Books in every bookstore. Self-help seminars led by these self-proclaimed experts who can make your life better by teaching you to challenge the limiting beliefs that hold you back. Yeah, I often mock these things because it's an industry more focused on revenue than assistance. But I get it. We all got to make a living and do what we do. And really, there is a lot of good stuff out there. I poke fun, but like I said early on, there's no one way to make this journey, and we all have to chart our own course. And these things are just tools to help us along the way. If a tool works for you, add it to the toolbox. If it doesn't work, toss it. With so many possible tools and ways forward, there's bound to be something for everybody. What I'm trying to do the rest of this week is just live in this space of fear. And I'm not just sitting with it, I'm actually trying to lean into it to better understand what it means to me and for me. Corrective actions are critical on this journey, but in order to know what tools to use, what steps to take, I really need to keep drilling down on root causes, which means I have to be open to it. I can't get stuck being so afraid of the fear that I create new boxes within boxes within boxes. I am not trying to win Best Compartmentalization Award 2023. Shit, I'm going to give back the trophies from the previous years. As I'm sitting in this space, as I'm reflecting, I'm having to sort through what are truth statements and what are excuses. And when am I turning a truth statement into an excuse? Let me give you an example. I know from recent conversations with the boyfriend that some things I'm sharing, the things I'm addressing, are trigger points for him. As best I can tell, that's a fact statement. If I stop sharing, if I go back to that space of withholding, if I try to magically determine what is too much for him, if I compartmentalize out of fear of his reaction or out of habit, I turn a fact statement into an excuse. And it's so easy to do because I am genuinely invested in our relationship, and I genuinely do not want to make things harder or worse. But I can't let that fear keep me from being genuine with the person who means the most to me, the person who is asking me to be my most real and vulnerable self. I have to trust, which is not easy for me, I have to trust that he will do his work in his part to accept the most genuine and healthy version of me because he loves me and because he wants to be with me. And if I'm giving him things that aren't genuine or things that aren't healthy, I have to trust him to share feedback and concerns and not be so damn scared of rejection or ridicule or judgment or looking foolish. I can't shut down when he comes to me with something we need to address. I can't run scared, and I can't make excuses about why fact statements are what they are. What I can do is acknowledge the reality and do something about it. You see, excuses are justifications for doing nothing. They are the progeny of fear responses. And I have had enough of that shit. I can also better tackle my fear by stripping away some of the emotionality, looking at things through a more realistic lens. For example, if my bestie says there are times it feels like I'm detached or avoiding talking to her, I would do well to tamp down my initial fear response to that statement and gently ask for clarification. Listen to the information I'm giving. Look for the facts. Look at the evidence. It's not judgment. If she didn't care, she wouldn't share. If she wasn't invested, she wouldn't give me an opportunity to be better. Most of all, I'm trying to do more things that actually activate my fear responses. You wouldn't know it from these videos, but I'm generally a pretty private person. So sharing this journey is phenomenally scary to me for all the reasons people might judge me. But fuck it, this is my journey. It is what it is right now, and it'll be whatever I turn it into. But this sharing, this exposing this process and being open and vulnerable, well, it helps me be accountable, and it helps me practice gracious vulnerability and caretaking for myself, which will lead to more gracious vulnerability and caretaking with others. I'm going to keep having hard conversations with a boyfriend. If he leaves, he leaves. And if he leaves because my most genuine and best self isn't what he wants, well, then okay, he needs to leave because it's not a match. But I can't keep tiptoeing around what we need to talk about, what I need to share, because I'm scared it'll chase him off. Let me be clear. He has given me zero indications that this is the case. It's my own fear driving that distorted thought. And it's because I'm scared of triggering him. And that's not on me. Just like he can't be scared of triggering me. If he does trigger me, then I need to work on that trigger response, not push him away. And I have to trust him to do the same work, which he is doing. Most of all, I have to remind myself that the things I'm fearing, even though they could be possible outcomes, aren't always the most likely outcomes. I tend to fear worst case scenarios. Most likely, this video project, this exchange I'm having, will have no measurable impact on my business. Clients aren't going to leave en masse because they see me as a real person now. Most likely, my relationship is going to move to an amazing space. We both want it. We're both working towards that goal, and it's working. The work is paying off. We are getting there. Most likely, my friends are going to continue to love and accept me where I'm at, whenever that is. They always have. There are a lot of things I haven't accomplished or experienced because I let fear hold me back. A dissertation that was mostly done 2 years ago. It sits there because I'm scared of not getting it right. A book I started 5 years ago that's a third of the way done. At one point I had an option for an advance, but I was too scared to share more pages. Trying new hobbies because I don't want to be bad at them. Singing karaoke, walking around shirtless at a beach. Telling a family member I absolutely hate a certain holiday dish, and please, for the love of God, quit making it just for me. It's awful. Here's the biggie. Sharing my truth because you might not like it. You might not like me later. Fear, I'm realizing, can be just as much of a motivator as it is a limiter. It's all about perspective, which I'm trying to shift on this journey. It's not easy. In fact, it's quite hard, but I'm doing it. That's where I'm at today. I'll be back tomorrow.